In this video, we are going to discuss about these tabs here in terms of formatting. And while some of these may have a lot of detailed prescriptions or functionalities that might come in, we'll look at the first basic understanding of these and then try and move ahead with our discussions. So let's start right to left. We'll start with this cell styles data point. So let me just write a test cell here, and depending on what style we choose, let me move this, do a control X and move it here, control V. And depending on what style we choose, it can automatically change the format of the cell. I can take it to a heading format. I can take it to some other format. It could be heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, depending on what the font size is. So essentially, predefined formats based on what Excel gives us, but is not in anything different from what we saw here on our toolbar on the left hand side. So we did this here, trying to put a different format on the cell. The same thing is what we are doing on using this, just that there is a certain amount of predefined formats which are available, right? So we can look at that and put these data points in. The second one is you could format the entire this portion as a table, right? So I can format this as a table, and it gives me a lot of data points with respect to a lot of styles with respect to how I can put the table in. So if I put this in, then it'll first ask what is the data, and it asks whether your table has headers. If your table has headers, then the first row is considered as headers. If I uncheck this, it will not take that as headers. If I check this, it will take that as headers, and then automatically put this in. Now, obviously, because the text was in black and we chose a black cell, it created a problem, but we could have chosen something else here in terms of table design, right? So I do a control Z, I do a control Z twice. We could, for example, choose this, it'll ask this, and it'll put in the data here. You see these small arrows that are dropping down from here? These are called filters, about which we will take a look at it in more detail as we go along, right, at a separate point of time. So that's broadly with respect to formatting the data set as a table. Once again, nothing that you cannot do manually, but just that it gives you a pre-formatted sense of how a table would look like, and you could go ahead and put that in your Excel workbook. The next bit that we're going to do is try this conditional formatting. Now, this is interesting because based on certain conditions, you could start creating a format for a certain amount of cells or data points in a table or a column. So let's actually try this out. Let's say we want to highlight the dairy products that have been sold. So let's assume these are certain dates on which some dairy products have been sold in certain regions, and the amount for which it is sold based on a certain outlet. Let's say we want to highlight dairy products which are sold on a particular date within, let's say, this month, and the data is, let's say, less than 500 bucks, right? So there are 3 points. We want to look at less than 500. We want to look at only dairy products. There are, produce, and there's grain also that is getting sold. And we want to look at this month, and we want to highlight those cells only, right? So let's first select the amount and try and see if we can highlight whatever is less than 500. Now, manually, we can do that any which ways, but let's say we want to do it in terms of in one shot. So you can highlight cells which are less than, there are a lot of data points here. We'll over a period of time try and look at all these, but to begin with, let's understand the concept of conditional formatting. Highlight cells that are less than 500, and you can highlight with a certain text which is predefined. You can also do a custom format, but let's for now start with what they are giving. So these are all the cells which are kind of less than 500, right? Now we need to highlight only the dairy produce. So I go back, highlight cell rules, a text that contains dairy, right? So basically I can highlight specific cells where text that contains dairy, and I can highlight that with dark red text once again. Let's say I do that, and so all the dairy produce comes in. And now I want data only in this month. So I select this and I say I will highlight cell rules on the account of a date occurring where all. So essentially this week, last week, this month, last month, etc. I'll put this month, right? I'll put this month all the dates that are available and I'll press OK. And I realize that in this particular month, there is no day on which there is a dairy produce sold for less than 500, right? Whenever dairy has been sold in this month, in fact, in this month, dairy hasn't been sold at all, right? I can do a Control Z, try and go and look at this in terms of a day.